everybody. Can I get everyone's attention for a moment? Hello. Whoa. Thank you, Kit. Welcome to Fringe City Futures. Oh my goodness. We are going to start this evening's festivities, and we have a little bit of a program for you all tonight. We also have a videographer, so I've been asked to please make a little bit of a parting of the seas just to make sure that some of our friends who are watching from around the globe this evening get the opportunity to share in this incredible event with us today. Very strangely, I have prepared a few scripted notes just because I have so many things to get through this evening, so that I know is not typical. But I do have a lot of folks to thank and a lot of things to try to keep on time. But I really first want to say thank you for coming. This is an incredible moment for Mass Design Group, and this has been a dream of ours for a very long time to really resurrect what we had as a vision that started in 2017 with a space just around the corner on Academy Street that we've since vacated, but we were using that space at the time to be what you're feeling again tonight, which is a storefront gallery space with think tank kind of embedded. And it was different then because we had the downstairs as just as the gallery, and upstairs we were working. And this is actually a much more interesting model. It's a hybrid where we're able to become an urban room, which I think we'll get a little bit more of a definition of here shortly, but is really a place where we see ourselves as a threshold point to community action, to community ideas, to community thoughts, and community partnerships. And so it is just incredible to have all of you here tonight, people who are partners, friends, staff, leaders, advocates, and family members, amongst other kind of relationships that you've been building with us, especially this evening, and have you celebrate what we think is really fascinating about this particular place. So thank you for coming. First and foremost, give yourself a nice round of applause, if you don't mind. I do have some partners who are going to help me with tonight's festivities and tonight's program. I'm going to start with Justin Brown. Justin, where are you? There we are. So I want to first introduce you to my good friend Justin. So Justin is not only another partner at Mass Design Group and helps to lead this particular office, but as a award-winning architect and the project architect for the National Memorial for Peace and Justice, Justin also really tried to focus on what it meant to design for public good. And he did that in Montgomery, Alabama, learning how a project could actually catalyze an entire city again. And so he was able to bring that type of knowledge here to the city of Poughkeepsie to also invest in this portfolio of adaptive reuse projects and see the climate imperatives that we have and how that actually relates to how we're going to try to solve these intractable problems across the entire country. And so Justin, with that, I'd like you as kind of a co-founder of the Fringe Cities Lab to maybe orient us all to the exhibition, if you had a second. Thank you.
Chris has never introduced me before. That was really flattering, and thank you. So welcome everybody. You're standing in a space that really tries to celebrate the work that the entire Mass Design Group team has been up to on the ground here. We believe that our work in Poughkeepsie is essential to Poughkeepsie. We believe in a vision of an engaged design process, discovering answers to intractable solutions that we can only discover with the help and insight of our community. What this exhibition shows is an earnest exploration of how we got here as a city, but also how we got here as a country. Poughkeepsie is, for us, not unique. It shares siblings across the country, which are at the boundary between the urban and the rural, the blue and the red, the have and the have-nots. And we believe that design has a role. Our built environment reflects our collective values, and that design has a role in addressing the social and environmental challenges that we face as a country. But we believe in doing so not from some high off lofty place, but by doing it from the ground up. And we've learned that. That's been something we've discovered. The exhibition here to my left, your right, really answers the question, how did we get here? Little Urban Renewal 101 if needed, and then the definition of the Fringe City. Over 1,170 cities received federal dollars under the Urban Renewal Plan. Half of those were under 150,000 people. And half of those saw a population decline, which was obviously not the intent of that federal spending. If you take the population of a place and the amount of money invested in that place, and you divide the two, you get the per capita investment. And Poughkeepsie received the third most money under this program of any city in the U.S., including New York and Chicago and all the other stories that we're more familiar with. And so for us, it's a really, really meaningful place to begin to understand this urban landscape. And we look at the role that the designer played in this unintended outcome. There are primary source planning documents for Poughkeepsie as well as other Fringe cities that you can explore there. Major blind spots that were overlooked, which we'll get into a little bit in the panel, hopefully. And then to my right is our sort of hypothesis, which is always evolving, always working, about the opportunity that exists in the Fringe City, in Poughkeepsie specifically. Every Fringe City was founded upon a regional concept of supply and distribution. The Fallkill here was the lifeblood of this place. And it was through the Fallkill that we've started to understand some ways of healing these urban renewal wounds. And then we've projected the creek onto other Fringe cities, which share the same sort of infrastructural characteristics of the arterial roadway that cuts off Main Street and the waterways that oftentimes are bridging across those divides. We have hypotheses about new industries that could arrive in these, not just the Hudson Valley, but other regions which are represented throughout the exhibition, the Great Lakes, Appalachia, New England, knowing that every solution is different. Every solution needs to be place-based. We're not able to solve these problems in all these places. The people from those places are the solution. But as designers, we believe we have a role that we could play in expressing those local interests. So welcome, and that was probably too much. Okay.
Thank you, Justin. I just want to also say how important it is to know that all of the team members that you're meeting tonight, so many of them have set down roots here in Poughkeepsie. Justin moved here with his wife Caroline, and they have just now celebrated the birth of their first baby. And so we are just so proud of how he has really formulated this as part of his personal investment, as the story continues across all of us here in this particular lab. It is also my distinct honor to introduce Rafe Larson, who has joined us from. Let me actually read this one because I had to prepare this one a little bit more. Rafe is the founder of the Future of Small Cities Institute. He's also a very established novelist and journalist, widely writing on transitional places and cities, especially London, Sarajevo, Detroit, Los Angeles. But he also has several children's books also. He's been a filmmaker and a documentary maker, but he lives in Troy, New York. And so he's going to actually tell us a little bit today the story of establishing an urban room network. And he's prepared a few visuals for us to try to explain what that means. Rafe, would you like to take the floor?
Thank you.
So I'm going to detach this, if that's okay, just so I can see the screen here. Okay. You tell me when you're ready. Before we begin, I just wanted to say it's such an honor to be here. The original Fringe City exhibition in New York City was one of the inspirations for me to start the Future Small Cities. So it's really nice for this to come full circle, and congratulations to Justin and the whole crew who put this together. It's astonishing work. Okay. We're still waiting for our visuals. So I've come down from the city of Troy. We're good? Okay. I'm going to turn on this clicker. It has a little bit of a loose cannon, so if I go too fast. Okay. So I'm here to talk about the concept of the urban room, which is where we find ourselves right now. This is not just an innocent gallery space. You're standing in a threshold space, which is incredibly powerful. And we're going to unpack that a little bit. We're now part of a network. There we go. Okay. So the Future of Small Cities, we're based in Troy, and we look at a lot of the challenges and opportunities that are in small cities, as outlined here in particular. But these, the kind of post-industrial cities that you found yourselves in, like in Poughkeepsie and Troy, suddenly found themselves, when faced with issues like climate change, displacement, gentrification, these great opportunities, these forks in the road, as it were. And one of the things we're setting out to in the Future Small Cities is to document them, but also to network cities together, to share information, to join hands with incredible organizations like Mass Design. Because often, and I'm sure you found this, we operate in silos, right? Cities are too busy, they're too strapped for time, money, people power, they're just keeping their heads up. And yet they're doing amazing partnerships, and they're doing experimentation, prototyping, and so we're here to document that and to show what's going on. So one of the things that we've done in Troy is to open a space called the Focus Lab, which is the future of cities and urban sustainability, and we call it an urban room, which Chris gestured at. So the question is, what is an urban room? And this comes out of the Urban Room Network in the UK, which has an established culture and network of urban rooms. But I love this definition because it's flexible, it's sort of open-ended, and it allows for a lot of different kinds of interpretations. But an urban room is a space where people can come together to help create a future for their local area. So you're standing in one. It can take on many forms. And here critically are four aspects that they think are important of urban rooms. One, there's a focus on the shared built environment, which is kind of built into the DNA of what Mass does, right? We're talking about threshold spaces, we're talking about public spaces, we're talking about places where people come together. So it's a critical part of cities where we all kind of come to make meaning. It has an open door. Literally, right there. And I think this can be interpreted on many different levels, but spaces like this are open to those who are not necessarily part of the design or the planning process, right? We're inviting in a lot of different populations, and that door needs to be open in a lot of different ways, and it's an ongoing process for us to make sure that the door is not only open, but that we're going out the door and meeting people where they are and bringing them back here and vice versa. So that's a kind of a challenge to us all, right? I think urban rooms are also creative spaces. It's not enough for them to be that sort of white box architectural gallery that we're also familiar with, some of us love. They need to be an invitation. They need to be a space where people can co-create and make meaning. So that's a challenge for us as exhibit designers, as curators, as event designers. How do we make people be invited into the process of co-creation and design? And then finally, they need to be on site. So I love what Chris said. This is sidewalk level, right? People are going to walk in off the main street. They're going to be here. The city is here, and here is the city, and that's really critical. Here's the Urban Room Network in the UK. It's 24 sites all across that good island of Britannia. And it's critically, it goes from very fancy. The Farrell Center in Newcastle is, I think, a $5 million center that has professionally designed exhibits. But then there's also these very sort of makeshift places. They're essentially pop-up centers, hole in the walls, cork boards, a little table, balloons. And I think the critical part of any urban room is what you do with it, how you activate it, how you make meaning, how you program it. You have to give people a reason to come in and meet. And that's one of the things that we found over the course of a year of having an open room is people start to learn it. It's like reading a book. They learn how to read the room. They learn what the room means for the city. And I'm sure that's going to happen with this space, right? It's going to have a nice evolution. This was our space. It was a dormant jewelry store that, oh my God, it was a hot mess. This was me looking at it the first day. There were 2 drop ceilings. People used to love the drop ceiling, right? One wasn't enough, like, let's go to 2. And it was hiding a beautiful plaster ceiling from way back when, but of course there was now this grid hanging down from it. So what did I do? I kind of documented all the wonderful retail features. These were drawers that were part of the jewelry store. And I made a note that we wanted to incorporate these kind of subtle gestures of retailism in the exhibition space to nod to its past. This is me bringing a group of bewildered RPI students to this. Notice the live wires hanging down, and they were like, "What did I get ourselves into?" And I was kind of explaining this idea of an urban room as this can be a messy space, right? It's a space of co-creation. I don't think they were convinced, but over the course of the semester, they built it. They painted it. The landlord promised they'd get rid of both drop ceilings. They got rid of nothing, so we wrapped the ceilings in canvas Christo style. And the students came up with a wonderful final exhibition. This was on the Hudson. Our first exhibition was on Hudson riverfronts, and they were game. And it was a space of meaning. And what better educational experience to design an exhibition about a city or about a river? They had to think about audience. They had to think about meeting people where they were. We finally we got rid of the drop ceilings. It was a real triumph. We smashed a bottle of champagne when we got rid of them. We took it up to the plaster ceilings, and this was our first exhibition. And this is a sort of lo-fi, it looks like those kinetic sand sculptures. It's just like a 3D relief with projection. We were all about low overhead, doing things on the cheap. But it became a kind of conversation table for the city to come around and talk about things. And critically, we had a whole host of partners, which Mass Design does as well, and many of you are here. One of our partners was the Children's Museum, because the Children's Museum lost their footing in Troy during the pandemic. So we had the burden of programming for people of all ages to think about cities. So this is a good example of like a wall that has multiple levels, right? There's some, I don't know if you can see them, there's buttons where kids can press, and there's, these 2 kids are talking about, crosswalks or whatever kids talk about, and adults are looking at maps and so forth. So that's our challenge as designers of these spaces. How do we get multiple different kinds of populations, multiple different kinds of ages, not just architects and designers, but all kinds of folks thinking and engaging with what we put up there. And these are just some of the partners. It's a collaborative space, and that's how you get people in there, is making these relationships and getting them to bring their stuff in here, and that's how you build on these environments. And I'm sure if you put your list up, it would be equally as long as, if not longer, than these partners. I taught a class with RPI, and for the next exhibition, which was on Main Streets, we went out into the city, and this was new for a lot of the students. And this was our second show, which just came up in December, and some of you have seen it. It's on Main Streets, this is I just wanted to show you this. This is the new facade. One of my partners is a RPI. He's an artist, Michael Oatman. He's a great guy. He went to town at the Troy Public Works Department. He stole 60 signs and made this crazy palimpsest of collages. And what I love about urban rooms, and I'm sure this place will do the same, is people aren't quite sure what they are, right? When they're walking by the sidewalk, they're like, is this a museum? Is this a thrift store? Is this a sign shop? And we can play with that kind of liminality and that confusion as a kind of invitation, which is what we do up in Troy. And this is just a few scenes from the new exhibition, which you should all come to. We're open on Saturdays. We also, I think critically, do a bunch of events, which I'm sure you'll do here, and that's how you bring some in. So we do school visits, we do film screenings, we do lectures and book talks, we do community meeting groups. Communities are now starting to use the space, and I think that's the greatest testament to what these places can become. If the community is coming and approaching you and say, hey, can we do our this and that and this, then it's become embedded in the fabric of the place. We have an artist in residence who does off-site sort of call-in responses to our exhibitions, so we're actually literally taking the programming out into the city. We have a classroom, and we also have a story booth, which I'm going to end here, and I think you can have a story booth here too. You have one, okay. We had so many people coming through our exhibitions and being like, let me tell you the story about the main street, or let me tell you the story about this stoop. And so this is their chance to go into what is a changing room, don't tell them that, and tell a 3-minute story. And we're taking their videos that they record and enfolding them back into the exhibition. So it's this really nice closing of the loop. So welcome to the network. We are now 2 nodes, and we're going to be many more. So I look forward to growing.
Rafe, thank you so much. Everyone is clamoring to get inside already. So I realize that everyone is still standing. Just encouraging everyone that there's still food and there's still drink. We're going to actually have a little conversation just to continue the program of the evening. But feel free, if you need to take a moment to just get a little extra, or if you need to sit down, please feel free to do so. I have another wonderful individual to introduce you to tonight. Kadia Lodge is here with us this evening, and I'm so honored that she was able to grace us with her presence this evening. Kadia is the executive director at the Lead for Poughkeepsie, which is part of the Lead for America program, which is a service organization, and we are made so much stronger by the inclusion of a Lead for Poughkeepsie fellow here at Mass Design Group. And so we thank you for all of your leadership and all of your support to try to make that possible for us. Kadia herself is an AmeriCorps Vista fellow, or alum actually, and has, through that effort of service, also has really championed herself through, and if I can get some of these notes correctly, she worked at the Dutchess County Regional Chamber of Commerce, Dutchess One Stop Career Center, and also at Central Hudson prior to this. But these deeper connections that you've been able to forge has been through your lifelong commitment to the city of Poughkeepsie, one of these incredible fringe city locations that we've been able to identify. And if you, Rafe and Justin, would like to come up, I'd love to try to ask a couple of questions, and then we'll have a little bit of time for a question and answer from everybody in the room prior to a conclusion in just a few moments. So would you mind coming up to the front? We were blessed with a visit from Doris Kearns Goodwin, who started to teach us not only about the stories of urban renewal, which you see on the walls, but also in the legacies of federal investment dollars. And she taught us this incredible kind of background on the WPA Great Deal era, and how FDR, who was not voted president in his own county, if we all know that, here in Dutchess County, was able to think about how to federally invest in all of these places. And he did it in a really incredible way, where he put people to work and he had large ideas. That kind of couples with the Great Society work and what you see on the walls today with urban renewal, and what we're left with, which was all kind of thought of in the studio vogue of ideas of efficiency and hygiene, were actually stalled. And we see a lot of those remnants lasting over a generation. And we're asking ourselves why. And so I wanted just to take a moment with each of our visitors and guests to try to talk about, well, how did we get here? And try to talk about what it means to live in a fringe city today.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate the introduction. How did we get here? Well, for one, I think that in order to understand the Fringe City concept, I had to look a little bit at Poughkeepsie and the history. And of course, being from Poughkeepsie, not every day am I thinking about, what happened prior to my arrival. I'm not going to say the year, because then that would tell you my age. But prior to being born in the 70s, let's just say, I was doing a little research on Poughkeepsie, and I noticed that there was a trend where Poughkeepsie was supported by individual investors, right? Lots of investments. I mean, Matthew Vassar, and of course, Mayor Eastman. So there were individuals who saw Poughkeepsie, saw the potential, and invested in Poughkeepsie. So I think that after the urban renewal in this Fringe City concept, people lost opportunity, right? So all this money's invested here, but as things started to close and opportunities start to wane, I think that people decided to leave so that they can find opportunity. And I was one of those people. So, you know, growing up here, I never really thought about living here permanently. I decided that I was going to go to New York City, and I love how you all have shared in this concept that a lot of, you know, fringe cities are close to metropolis areas. And so I was like, I'm going to New York City, I'm gonna do, you know, live my dreams and all of that great stuff. But that did not happen because I got to New York, and New York chewed me up and spit me out. And so I found myself coming right back here to the place that I was born and raised. And I love Poughkeepsie. I have so many family members that have actually left here as well and made lives for themselves. But I'm one of those who just decided to come back. Even my mom, after she retired for working in the state for 32 years, she decided that she was gonna go back to where she was born, and that's down in Alabama, and then make a life for herself in retirement there. But I think that, you know, we're here, we're in Poughkeepsie, you see these ebbs and flows of change, and I think that if we can have opportunity, that people will stay. And we've seen in your concept here, we've seen growth. And I think that, I hope that answers the question, but yeah, I'm gonna pass it to one of you all to answer. But that's my response. Thanks.
So I think I'll try to answer the question maybe more as it relates to kind of urban design. Sorry. So the Poughkeepsie exists today because of the confluence of a top-down planning initiative where designers who are not from here are drawing lines on a map with a certain perception of what this place is. Coupled with, and that design process, because it was so far away and didn't have those insights to the idiosyncrasies of place that make a place, that initiative anticipated the private sector, the people who lived here, filling in around the infrastructure that was invested in. And that investment never came. In fact, the economy of the place, which was really centered around the local production of food and shelter and or building parts and clothing parts, became cheaper to ship it in from on a global supply chain. So that sort of dual alignment of this planning initiative with that economic exit resulted in the landscape that we see here and in fringe cities like it. So it's a confluence of forces. That is a massive oversimplification, but I do see in this many blind spots, and I think this curious exploration of the past was important for us as designers to do so that we could see in the planning documents the blind spots that existed. The car was intoxicating to both sides of the political aisle, as I understand. And introducing roadways across the country, there were many reasons to do this, including a strong argument as a defense system against the Cold War with Russia, that we would be able to drive outside of cities. You know, that combined with easing access to downtowns, that combined with some more sort of, I'll just say it, racist aspirations. And what was not foreseen was by introducing those roadways and making it easier to get into downtown centers, we actually made it easier to leave. It opened up an entire new opportunity for businesses to buy land more inexpensively outside of urban centers, and the strip mall was born. You won't find the strip mall anywhere in any of those urban planning design documents. And I would say that we got here because of designers' blind spots. I think it's important that we take responsibility for that as a profession, and coinciding with the economic displacement of manufacturing.
And I'll just quickly say, I feel like a space like this is sort of the anti-urban renewal space, because, urban renewal was based on this sort of catch-all idea of what blight was, what development should look like, and it was a sort of one-size-fits-all, applied at en masse. Whereas a place like this, we're studying the synchronicities of every place, where we understand, how local geography affects a place, how the history of manufacturing affects. We're meeting a city where it is and planning for that city as it is. And we're also creating a space of co-creation, which urban renewal was not, right? There was none of that true involving of people. So when we document this evolution of what happened, I think the very process of it is a sort of call and response to it, which I approve.
Well, I think what you're maybe even pinpointing, and as we look through some of the primary documents that are here, there was a lot of committee work that is actually recorded, and they have a lot of committee members that actually have moments of diversity included. But what we can't understand, and we know that history repeats itself, is how do we avoid these blind spots? And so we're trying to understand what would be a success metric for what the future of a fringe city might look like. And I'm wondering if any of you might have some insights onto what shouldn't we do, what would be better, and how could we measure that?
I think you're already doing that. I think being here in Poughkeepsie, choosing to be in Poughkeepsie, you're already setting a trend. And I believe that collaboration, which is, you've listed all your current collaborations here with the food hall, the partnership center, which my grandfather went to high school there, he went to school there, which is very strange. But I think that it's just so important to continue this cross-collaboration and making sure that you're working with all the partners here in the room, right, and beyond, right? Where you're in Troy, I love this concept of the urban room, because it just reminds me of today. I was in a meeting with some amazing fellows that I happen to work with, and they all have such really amazing ideas on how they can get in front of the community and how they can help, in various ways themselves as well, right? We're building the future leaders here and having a space for them to convene and to brainstorm their ideas and to collaborate is amazing. And so I'm so excited for what you're going to have with this space and all the research that you've done. And I think that moving forward is just a small part of that. But you're actually doing the work. You have someone who's engaged in the community. You've done work around the world. And so you're the blueprint. And I'm excited to be part of your story. And I don't know, I think everything is just really great. I got here at 5 o'clock, so I had time, guys. I had time to really dive into this concept of Fringe City and just being honored to be part of Poughkeepsie. And I hope that my story, and it began here, Vassar Hospital, and I hope that it ends here as well. So I think what you're doing here is amazing, and I'm in awe of everyone here in the room. I see some familiar faces and some new faces, but these are people who are just really invested in Poughkeepsie, and I love it here, and I love what you're doing, and just thank you so much.
Okay. You just asked, like, what's our new challenges? And for me, someone who studied these kind of crazy life cycles of cities, a lot of these post-industrial cities right now, Troy certainly, are starved for investment. And so when developers come in, when you start to see investment, there's not a sort of criteria for what should stay and what should go. It's sort of like, come, oh, you want to be here, please, like, give us whatever you want. And unfortunately, it begins a cycle that the horse gets out of the barn really quickly. So I would say our new challenge is how do we develop without displacing? You know, how do we engage in that cycle of renewing our communities, of putting in jobs, and you know, and retrofitting our factories and all this stuff without pushing the citizens out. No one's figured it out, but you've seen little pockets. But I actually think you all are doing some work, right? You know, designing without displacing. It's part of your DNA. But that's our new challenge. You know, affordable housing for all, essentially. You know, yeah.
The question is how. You know, I think that the industry, it's a matter of time before let's call it the market, the industry finds fringe cities. Global warming, climate change, climate migration patterns are all pointing to those red dots. Remote work, the return of manufacturing to the U.S., the insane increasing costs of major urban centers. Living in major urban centers is, you know, they become basically a home for the 1%. It's coming. 23 out of the 100 fringe cities that we've looked at have seen population increases since 2010, between the 2010 census and the 2020 census. So it's coming. So what do we do in order to bolster or to create a foundation that can support the communities that have endured this decline before that arrives? I think at Mass we're investing heavily in social infrastructure, health, housing, education. If we can transform liabilities into assets and put them into the hands of the community before that market shows up, there might be another pattern that we could maybe see. That's my hope anyway.
Right on. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, I probably should have stopped there while I was ahead. But I think this idea of regionalization is a really fascinating one that we've been exploring. Fringe cities were regional centers, regional economic centers. They were founded because of the unique confluence of the creek and natural resources to make things. And in the era of the globalized economy, those creeks lost their purpose. And so what is the new industry that can fuel the Fringe City as potentially a regional center once again, is a question that we seek to answer answer is absolutely the wrong word, but we have a couple of hypotheses around burgeoning industries that are place-specific, location-specific, knowing that building stuff is expensive and having an economy is essential to growth. Our investment in the social infrastructure, if it precedes that, is really, I think, the hypothesis that we're playing out right here in Poughkeepsie, which we hope is a pilot project.
Thanks, Justin. I think we do have time for at least one question from the audience. I see Ms. Geraldine Laybourne. Would you like to ask your question?
So, to me, I'm also in love with Poughkeepsie. I was an architecture major at Vassar, and I mapped out the whole central business district in 1968 and 69. It was very different. What I just haven't heard you say at all, and I have to say it, is unless this city focuses on our youth, especially our babies, we will not have the infrastructure we need. And for me, this country is dead last of all countries in terms of childcare and what we do for our youngest neural network developing babies like Sebastian. And unless we embrace the fact that we are a small city, we can prove things here. And we can prove that we can change the trajectory of public education. And who wouldn't want to come to a city with the very best early childhood? I'm sorry. I'm beside myself.
Jerry, I thank you for the statement. Was there a question?
I know you're doing stuff. I don't feel like calling it out.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do this for Justin to talk about babies.
Health, housing, and education, most importantly, at the early childhood level.
We do have a question in the back.
Hello, everyone. Great panel, great questions. My question was really in reaction to what you shared about designing without displacement, which is something that definitely resonates with me. Being on the ground and having a real visceral fear that with all of the development happening here, that it's happening to the community and not for and with the community. Designing without displacement, what does that mean? And what strategies or interventions can be implemented to preserve the cultural fabric and the families who reside here, who want to continue to reside here, but who have no idea about what is going on in terms of the development of our city, and who I am fearful of the rug being ripped from beneath their feet, and it'll be too late. What strategies or interventions can be implemented now to prevent that?
Would you like me to take a stab?
I definitely would love to respond.
Oh, you want to respond?
Let's go down the.
Okay, we're going to repeat the question for people who did not get the chance to hear from the microphone. But the Talent Davis, lead for Poughkeepsie Fellow and Community Engagement Specialist for Mass, raised an important question about what strategies are we really talking about when we're talking about resisting displacement when we're working in our places here in fringe cities. If I can summarize it, a very impassioned question. Do our panelists want to take a stab at this?
Thanks, Talent, for that question.
Here.
I think it, hello?
Here. Okay.
Check here.
Yeah.
That's all.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Talent, thank you so much for your question. And to Geraldine's point, I actually started my career as an educator, but as I told you earlier, I had I left Poughkeepsie. I went to New York City to be an educator, and New York City was New York City. It was a different experience for me. I am from the suburbs. I'm from here. It was a whole nother world, but my heart has always been in the youth, with the youth. I love working with the fellows who to me are incredibly dynamic, but I am with you when you say we have to focus on our children. Absolutely, and I love the space that you have created here. I just hope that there is opportunity for people like Talent and other young entrepreneurs in the city to find a space. I don't know exact strategies, but as long as you continue the collaboration, as long as you continue to use your voice and say what the problem is and maybe coming up with some solutions or suggestions for our leaders in the community and just continue to say that, we really can't stop inflation. We can't stop some of the things that have happened to us, but I'm one of those people. I don't want the rug pulled out from under me. I like to stay here in the community. And I've made some choices in my life where I find myself living here in Poughkeepsie. I want to own a home, but then I look at the house prices, and I'm like, I don't know if I have $300,000 yet, but I'll keep saving, but you find these barriers to staying in your place, right? I hope that you continue to use your voice, and I hope that you continue to mobilize young people like yourself who want to stay here and you want to make a home for yourself in Poughkeepsie. And I'm committed to working with you and any partner in the room who wants to continue on that path, on making sure that we at least state the problem and continue to support our young people in this community through partnership, collaboration, and patience, right? But sometimes we don't have enough time. We've had a lot of time, and things are they're changing, but they're not changing fast enough, right? And so, again, thank you so much for your question, and just thank you so much for being always thoughtful and really thinking about how to, like, these huge problems, but really thinking about it on a more like a level of community and impact. So that's my response to your question, and I look forward to hearing your feedback as well.
Thank you. You asked the mother lode question. We could be here the rest of the night. So I'll just try to be so brief in a couple of strategies. One, I think, is education. Spaces like this where you're going beyond the sort of, cursory level of let's involve the community and let's do a charrette, and actually like inviting people in the co-creation process for a long period of time. And I actually think, connected to your question, bringing kids in, breaking down those barriers, like who's a designer, who's an architect, who's a no, people who live where they are know what they want and know what they need. They're the experts. Like, let's harness that. So, involving places like this is an education process. The other thing is having strong neighborhood groups and community groups, because that's how you create a civic identity. That's how you create a civic sense of worth. Like, we got to protect this neighborhood from sort of outside displacement. And then the third thing, I think, is the money question, right? A lot of this was based on redlining, which designated areas like no-go zones. We have to have like anti-red lines where we have to seek out Black and brown businesses. We have to have Black and brown banks that make it a target to give mortgages to people who wouldn't otherwise be able to. We have to make sure that the funding is there so that people who are here, who want to start a business, who want to own a house, can, and make it easy for them. We have to get rid of those barriers. So those were the three things that came to mind.
Right on.
I think the only thing I would add to that, it's a process question. We have to get in front of the market in the development of infrastructure to support the people that live here, right? So health, housing, education usually follows the industry when the market arrives. If we could build that stuff before it gets here, I think that there are stronger roots to resist that force, which is it's a hypothesis, but I think that architects, designers are usually following the market, right? We're service providers to those entities, governments, wealthy institutions, private developers, that are infusing a place with capital. And the work that we're trying to do here is to shift that dynamic where the designer can be an advocate for the community as opposed to the money. And so it's a sequencing that we're trying to reverse. But we'll have to wait and see if it works.
Yeah, right on. Some inspired answers, and really thinking about who MASS is. I mean, we always have to remind folks that we're an acronym of Model of Architecture Serving Society, which always reminds me that we put others first. So we're not necessarily first interested in self-interest, which oftentimes translates to listening. This is a space of listening. This is one of two. The UK might be 24 ahead of us, but we have a chance to maybe model something a little different. And this is the beginning of doing that again. And that's why this exhibiting ideas in our places is really important to trying to understand that every place is unique, and we need to listen a little deeper before we start putting pen to paper. And, I liken our work oftentimes to that of a DJ. I know some of us have heard this before, but there is a song being played here. And sometimes you just need to kind of up the amplitude in that one channel. There's little, that little amplitude is just, it's ready to be heard and empowered that spot. Because that's what actually gets you competitive advantages. Everyone talks about it as these kind of more abstract terms, but it's actually things that are about what's actually happening. You're so right. People know what they want, and we just need to know and listen. And I think this is one place of many. I am so excited that we're opening our exhibition and gallery here, and a couple months ago, Boston did the same. So I really encourage anyone who's traveling through Boston to also stop by Mass. Really reach out to us. This is a space that we hope not only will be open for some weekly hours on Thursdays and Fridays just regularly, but give us a call. Tell us you need a tour. Tell us you have a group that needs to see this, and we'll be happy to try to find time. That is important to us. The fact that it's on the walls is not enough unless it's actually really shared with others. And so we are really encouraged to try to establish a series and a sequence of conversations in this space over the next couple of months. We've been already talking about a fall kill cleanup. I believe, Serena, it's on the 29th of April, which is a Saturday. But that, coupled with a conversation about why the fall kill matters, needs to be a conversation that continues. So continue to look for invitations from us, but reach out to us in the meantime. As we, I know it's getting late and Serena's giving me the nod that we're way over time. I do have a couple thank yous. So just bear with me for just a moment. Many thank yous are needed in order to make things happen tonight, very specifically. First, to my incredible exhibition team who really not only installed, but designed, laid out, argued, and really fought for what you see on the walls. There's a lot more content that we had to edit down to make it fit this particular space. So to Justin, to Bob, to Aaron, to Adriana, to Serena, to Morgan, to Am, and to Caitlin. First, I wanted to really give you a nod. We see you, and we really appreciate that you were able to bring all of this to reality. So thank you so much for all of your work. Alongside those folks, I also have to just really applaud our incredible team here in Poughkeepsie. The Hudson Valley Design Lab, as we've affectionately called it since 2017, really has become a Poughkeepsie office, with 12 members strong. And, we rely on every single person who sits in their desk to give and share their unique perspectives on what they're seeing, as they really do walk the streets and walk alongside folks every day. So I really appreciate your warmth, your energy, your enthusiasm, your commitment. So specifically to Andrew, to Evelina, to Vrinda, to Heather, and to Talent, I really couldn't do this without you, and you make this completely possible every day. I must give a very, very special shout out to Serena. You have changed everything. Serena, from a logistics point of view, I think it was about the day before Halloween, said, in order to make this happen, I need 6 months lead time to actually think about what a gallery show might look like. And I think you're right. I didn't believe you. I said, we could do it in a couple weeks. No, we need 6 months. And in all seriousness, you're just constant energy. Your calendar invites, your reminders, your questions. You have really taken this on in stride. I know you've never done this before, but you had no fear. And we couldn't really imagine how this would have been possible without that type of leadership. So thank you. Just a couple more notes. I promise I'll be done in a second. I do want to also thank the rest of Mass who decided that this was important enough to come and share the event with us tonight. We have a lot of folks from our extended offices who are in-house today. Specifically, I wanted to call out Max and Jessica, Vayom, Patricia, an executive director at Mass, Cisco, Will, and all the way from Kigali, Rwanda, Amani is here. And we really appreciate the dedication and commitment for all of you to make the trek. It's so important. Finally, I gotta say that this is a little bit of a celebratory moment of a send-off, if I can be so bold. It's a capstone to an incredible work that Caitlin Taylor has been able to share with us since 2018, where she was not only just a fellow professor at one point, but also decided that her work needed to be dedicated to this particular place and studio. And you really changed it from a conversation about local embeddedness, which I think we're all talking about today, but also trying to make it about regional connectedness and into planetary urgency. So all of this work for Fringe Cities became the basis of a studio at Harvard University in 2021. And that actually became kind of a way of understanding that our sibling cities, the ones in red that Justin pointed to a few minutes ago, have increasing complexities. And so your incredible enthusiasm, your leadership, your incredible organizational talent to take intractable problems and make them into choreographed, logistical, kind of amazing systems. We are both sad to lose you, but we're also completely proud of your leadership as you become the managing director of the Stone Barns Center for Food and Agriculture, one of our regional partners. So, just as a final note, I would love Caitlin just to say a couple of reflective remarks before we send us off for the evening. Caitlin.
Thanks, everybody. I will just be really brief and say that I'm so proud to see this work come to life here on the walls in our gallery. We've been talking about this for a really long time, and the last 5 years being here with this team on Main Street doing this work day to day has been like the joy and honor of my career and my life. This wild transition that I'm making is very sad and very exciting, but above all else is really a deepening of my commitment to this work and this place, and a deepening of my commitment to this region, to our collaborators, our stakeholders, our partners, and to the network of sort of shared beliefs and shared values that we have here in the Hudson Valley. So if you know me, you know that I have sort of 50% of a brain that works with a sense of urgency, and 50% of my brain has a very long view of time. By a sense of urgency, I mean that like I wake up every morning with a fury about how we have to change everything and we have to do it right now. And a long view of time, meaning that I come at this work, and I think we all come at this work with the understanding that all of this is like more than any one of us can do in our life, in any one lifetime. And it's gonna take all of us working in all of our unique ways to make this kind of systemic transformation across scales and across disciplines happen. So I'm here, you know, like I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying here in this place and in this region and working in this new configuration, leading another regional partner organization with the belief that that the future is regional, and that transformation is going to come from Fringe Cities. That transformation will happen with Fringe Cities at its epicenter, and that like regional future is designing and building that regional future is going to take all of us acting with both a sense of urgency and a long view of time, and working across disciplines in this way that is like uniquely possible here. So I'm very grateful and very honored for the opportunity to have learned that here and get to take it with me. So thanks everybody for coming. I don't know if we have more. Are we? Okay, that's it. Thank you everybody for coming. Get some more food and mingle. We'll show you every piece of content on the boards if you'll stick around.